everyone, and welcome to today's DataVox webinar, How to Maximize Fleet Efficiency with Samsara, presented by Samsara. My name is Jessica, and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this webinar through Cisco WebEx events, and the audio can be heard through your PC or by calling into the phone number listed and with the access code provided in your confirmation email or calendar invite for this event. Today's webinar is being recorded on behalf of DataVox, and participation in this event indicates your consent to being included in that recording. All attendees will receive an email with the link to the completed recording 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you have questions for the presenters at any time during this presentation, you may submit those questions via the Q&A feature to the bottom right of your screen. This should already be turned on. Simply click Q&A and the text box will appear. Our panel will be responding to these questions throughout the presentation via text and verbally at the conclusion of the presentation. If you are in need of support or have a question not pertaining to today's topic, please utilize the chat feature and I will be happy to assist you. This feature is separate from the Q&A feature and can be turned on by clicking the chat bubble in the lower center of your screen. Now that we have reviewed the features of this webinar, we would like to start off today's presentation with a few words from our VP of Building Technology Solutions, Mike Bebchuk. Mike, the floor is yours. Mike, I think your mute is still on.
That's a rookie mistake. Thanks, Jessica. We're excited to have Samsara with us today, and they're going to share with us their fleet management technology, very sophisticated tools. They serve a lot of different markets, have thousands of customers on the platform. In fact, DataVox is a customer and user of Samsara, and I don't know what we would do without it. Helps us with safety protocols and compliance that we have with our fleet, and they're going to share with us today some of those features that are used on a daily basis with their customers. And so with that said, I'm going to hand it off to Alec. And go ahead. Thanks, Alec.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the warm introduction here. Like Mike said, my name's Alec. I am a partner manager here at Samsara. I work with DataVox and other partners throughout the country to really show off the platform and what we can do. I'm going to share with you just a couple of slides here just to give you a sense of who Samsara is, where we come from. But I prefer to spend most of our time actually going through a live customer dashboard and showing you some of the best practices that they use to really maximize their fleet efficiency with the Samsara dashboard. So give me 1 second and I will share my screen here. All right, now quick check, can everyone see that okay?
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to try and avoid the death by PowerPoint here. Okay. Perfect. So here today to speak to you about how to maximize fleet efficiency with Samsara. But before we do that, wanted to just give you a quick introduction of who Samsara is. So we're really an IoT company. Fleet is what we started with, and it's our core product line at the moment. But we've got a few other product lines as well, from our industrial segment to our connected worker segment that is just up and coming. And really across all of those business lines that we work through today, Samsara's core mission is to overall just improve the safety, the efficiency, and the sustainability of the operations and the customers that power our economy. From a historical standpoint, Samsara is actually founded by the two co-founders of a company called Meraki. So for those of you from the IT space, you've probably heard the name before. And then once they sold that company off to Cisco, they turned around and decided to do something completely different in the IoT space. And between those two companies and the work that they've done, they're always working to innovate across a variety of segments. Whether it's the work that we're doing at Samsara with advancing real-time data for fleets of vehicles and assets, the artificial intelligence that we're inserting into our connected cameras for vehicles, as well as the open API framework that we've built with the system to allow all of that data to actually flow into other programs or products that you're using today. They're always looking to push the envelope. And, that's highlighted by, the strength of the company and the fact that they're building for the long term, even with kind of the downturn that we've all unfortunately seen over the last few months. We're still 1,500 employees strong. We're still fully focused on developing not only product and features that are in the pipeline, but the next and greatest ones after that, and really just making sure that our customers, both new and long term, are supported as best as possible. We're still growing in spite of all this. We've got over 10,000 fleet customers now, and you can actually see there on the right, it's across a wide variety of segments, whether it's ArcBest Freight over in transportation, or the city of Boston, state and local government. We've got Chick-fil-A and Swire Coca-Cola in food and beverage. Really, you name a vertical or a company, and we're probably talking to them, or we're in that vertical. And that's because we have this truly consolidated platform. And it's not just focused on vehicle tracking or asset tracking or dash cameras, but it's pulling all of them in to one platform and having all the hardware components meant to work together to ensure that it's a seamless experience for any of our customers. And at the end of the day, too, a lot of our growth as a company is not only on the engineering side, but it's on the overall just customer support side. So that could be from our implementation and onboarding teams to make sure that folks really hit the ground running from day one, to our technical support teams, making sure that if there is a question, whether small or large, that there's an answer as quickly as possible, so that you can remain efficient in your day-to-day operations and focus on what is actually important for you. And like I mentioned, we do have this connected platform. So whether that's our vehicle gateways that plug into the vehicle diagnostic port, to our asset gateways for both powered and unpowered assets, to our dash cameras, to our connected driver app, which works on any iOS or Android phone or tablet and is free to download for any amount of users. We try to enable all of these different features that you see there on the right, from compliance to real-time location and tracking and all the things associated with that, to things like documents and going paperless, both within your vehicles and in your back office, to vehicle maintenance and beyond. And one of the things that you probably saw on that last slide was our open API framework. So Samsara, with all of this data, at the end of the day, we know that we're not going to be the only source of truth or program that a lot of our customers need to look at. So what we've done is we've created an open API framework where all of the data that's within that Samsara cloud, one, it's your data as a customer, and two, all of that data is accessible to you to pull into other systems. We know that depending on the company, there's probably two problems that we're running into. It's either that you don't have enough data to or insights into your operations today to do anything actionable with it, and you need to get that data and also analyze it and put it into other systems. Samsara can help you do that with the connected sensors. On the flip side, we run into a lot of organizations, especially on the larger side, that are probably too siloed, and maybe they have too much data and they have no idea how to actually coordinate all of that and collaborate in an effective manner. And again, with consolidation of all of that within the Samsara platform, across vehicles, across assets, across safety teams and fleet teams, and beyond, all of that can be analyzed in one shared space and viewed and really understood from a trend standpoint to make sure that you can make those actionable decisions. And finally, looking at the features that we're not only working on, but we've worked on in the past and we're looking towards in the future. I think in the slides, it probably calls out like a monthly update cadence. Realistically, it's weekly with Samsara. Across all of these different product lines, whenever we're working with someone like Swire Coca-Cola, City of Boston, any of those names, big or small, when they have a feature that they need from Samsara or one that they would like down the road, we listen to them and we make sure that where and whenever possible we build that into the dashboard, knowing that when it's introduced for someone like ArcBest Freight, it's actually introduced to every other customer that we have as well. There's no upcharges, there's no hidden fees or gotchas, if you will. It's all really just released onto the platform, and as long as you have the relevant piece of hardware and the license associated with it for that feature, you will gain access to that feature as well. So enough slides, in my opinion. I'd like to actually take you to a live customer of ours. They're Hardees. They're a produce distribution company that's actually based out of Texas and serving that state and a few of the surrounding ones. And I like to show them because they actually are using a majority of our features and sensors and are a really good use case for how to efficiently utilize all of these in conjunction with one another to make sure that they're really analyzing and working with their fleet in the best way possible. So hopefully it's not too much here on the screen from the start, but this is kind of the view that you'll get when logging into the Samsara dashboard for the first time each day. So with this view, you can see we take the fleet position of Hardees and we basically overlay it on top of the Google Maps view of the world. You can see there's a bunch of symbols there. I'm going to go up into the top right just to help you make sense of them. At a high level, green is going to mean it's something that is currently powered on, and black means it's powered off. If it's a circle, it's going to be a vehicle, and if it's a square, it's going to be one of our asset gateways. So that could be a trailer, it could be a skid steer, it could be any number of things. And then if it's an arrow, it means that it's currently moving. But we try to not only have a relatively simple legend there, just so that people can understand at a glance what they're looking at, but we also put everything onto, and I hate the cliche, but one pane of glass. So whether it's your vehicles, your sensors, your assets, you can see them all in one single space instead of having to go between different sections or different dashboards entirely to view them. So one other thing that I'll call out here is that with all of these customer dashboards, you can actually go in and see the entire fleet depending on your access. Or in Hardees' case, we know they use something called tags to actually go in and just show folks at different dispatch centers, whether it's their Austin, Dallas, or Houston locations, just the vehicles and assets that are frankly relevant to them and that they need to see so as to not clutter their view and their day-to-day. We've also seen folks over the last 2 months who are maybe working normally with ELDs under the hours of service restrictions. They've actually started tagging different vehicles as COVID exempt, meaning that they don't have to drive under the same restrictions that they normally would over the next few months because they're transporting essential goods and services. You can go down here through this list and select any individual vehicle. At the same time, you can also just search in an individual vehicle if you know which one you want to look for. And it will actually bring you just to that individual vehicle if that's the one that you need to look at. And I'm looking at truck number 522 here. If I click in, I can actually go in and see that individual vehicle and a few relevant metrics for it. You can see this one actually has one of our AI-enabled dash cameras in the vehicle, so it's going to get image updates of what's going on the road for that vehicle every 5 or so minutes. I can see not only where it is currently, but where it's been over the last 24 hours. And I can adjust that too. If I want, I can see where it's been in the last hour, week, or month. And since Hardees is actually a produce distribution company, they've got some of our environmental sensors. So coming back to the idea of one consolidated view, from a lot of our customers, we know that having all of this data is great, but it doesn't really mean much unless I can go through and analyze what was going on in a really meaningful way. So for customers like Hardees, we've actually introduced the ability to take our temperature sensors in the back of their refrigerated vehicles and go through and see at every single point along the trip exactly what temperature it was within the vehicle or within the back of this box truck is what I believe this one is. See exactly what temperature it was. So let's say if you're in the food and beverage distribution business, you get a complaint from a customer that a load that you delivered was spoiled. You could actually go back in here, or if the government comes in that case, you can go in here and say, in every single part of that trip, we were actually housing the food or beverages at a safe temperature per the FSMA or FSMA compliance rules. In a similar vein, you can actually do the same thing from a safety standpoint. You can go in here and see the speed that this vehicle is going at any given point in its trip, and be able to tell exactly what they were doing, when and where. And that's because we have this real-time visibility into all of our customers' fleets. And to give you a sense of what that looks like, we have something called helicopter view. And I believe this vehicle, he was going 58. We have something that's called helicopter view. We know that, frankly, breadcrumb trails are kind of a thing of the past, especially with the Uber effect, if you will. People wanting to know exactly where vehicles are, whether it's theirs or whether it's something that's being delivered to them. So when we go in, we'll be able to see with each of these vehicles exactly where it is and how fast it's going. So if I'm one of the fleet dispatchers, I can click in and click helicopter view. And it appears I've actually chosen one that is currently parked, but it's actually going to show me if it were going on Commerce Street here, it'll actually show me that and show me the direction they're going, where they are in that trip, and give me that up to the second view. So if someone calls in and says, hey, I need to know where this guy is because he was supposed to be here 5 minutes ago, I can actually give them that insight instead of having to wait around for that information. In a similar vein, we can actually even do this in a more automated way. And we've seen customers like Hardees, especially with their normal routes being disrupted, we've seen them start to use something called live sharing, which allows them to actually, for an individual vehicle or a group of vehicles, be able to create a essentially private dashboard, if you will, that shows the live location of that vehicle or those vehicles for their end customers. And they can send that out so that instead of having to field those calls and constantly look up this information, they can be more efficient with their time and just send them a live sharing link so that they can go in and just see the vehicle or vehicles that they need to for any sort of deliveries that are going to be made. And, kind of going back to that thought that, Hardees and a lot of our other customers who are out there today and still operating, a lot of them are running into the need to kind of operate on the fly and adjust things in real time. For things like, special deliveries or urgent deliveries. Maybe they're going to a hospital, or maybe they're, we ran into this out in California. Maybe they're just delivering more toilet paper to Costco because they keep running out. In those cases, we can actually use our live dispatch tool as well. And the really neat feature or functionality that we've done here is you can not only enter in an address if it's an existing customer location that you need to go to, you can also just even click on a map. Maybe you're a towing company or someone who is in like EMS. We've seen them have to use this if it's along the side of the highway or if there's not an exact address that we can send them to. And you can actually use that to dispatch vehicles in real time based off of things like what's the closest vehicle. Of those vehicles that are close, which one actually has enough fuel to get me to that point? In this case, I'd probably look at vehicle number 061 here because it's got about 60% of its fuel and it's only 36 minutes away. And then for vehicles that actually are operating under the 8 hours of service exemption, we can actually even look at how many hours they have left of drive time to make sure that if we're sending someone there, we're sending someone who actually can drive there legally and we're not putting someone in a bind. And again, it's all really just visible to you in one screen, so that you're not wasting your time being inefficient and clicking through different disparate areas of the dashboard, but you have it all at your fingertips right there. So one other thing that we're hearing from a lot of our customers today is that because of the, situation that we're in with COVID, a lot of folks are either seeing increased utilization of their fleets in that they need to run their vehicles more often because they're seeing a surge in business, or they're seeing actually a significant decline in how often they're using their assets or their vehicles. And so with the reporting section of the dashboard, which I'm going to go to here on the left, click on reports, We have quite a few that we won't be able to go through at this time, but one of the really significant ones has been this utilization feature. And this allows us to look at both a micro and a macro level with, frankly, how much we're actually using each of these different vehicles or assets that we have in our fleet. You can actually go in and you can see for whatever given time period you've selected, you can see it's usually going to default to the last week. Then you can go in and see how often you're utilizing each of your vehicles. And this has a couple of different implications. One, from a maintenance standpoint, if you're overutilizing some vehicles and underutilizing others, it allows you to adjust that to ensure that you're having a better usage rate across all of those so that you don't run certain vehicles into the ground while barely using others. At the same time, you can actually go in and see, is this an opportunity for me to right-size my fleet? Maybe I actually am going to find that I've got a couple extra vehicles that even historically I wasn't using that much because I thought I'd need them for surges in demand, but quite frankly, I didn't. This will allow you to go in and say, well, for truck number, if I filter the other way, for some of these other vehicles like 066 and 067, maybe if I go back over the last few months, I'm going to find I actually don't even ever really use those vehicles. And I can take them out of my fleet, and by right-sizing them, I can take that capital that I would receive from selling off those vehicles and reinvest it into other parts of the business that do need maybe some more help so that we can be more efficient with the time and dollars spent. And one other thing that I'll call out is that you can see here, we can actually go in and adjust the total hours available during a week. I believe Hardees only operates 12 hours a day. They do operate 7 days a week, so they've adjusted it to 84 hours. But you do have the ability to go in and make it really customized and personal for your fleet and for your own use cases across really all of your vehicles and trailers. So next up, since we're talking about reports, another area that fleets are always trying to be more efficient is when it comes to fuel and fuel-related costs, because we know that that is a major cost center really for anyone who runs more than a handful of vehicles. So with the fuel usage reporting that we have available, because the vehicle gateways plug directly into vehicle diagnostic ports, you're actually able to see their fuel efficiency. If you're reporting it, you can actually see the different fuel purchases that your drivers are making. And then you can see the estimated costs, and you can go in and you can actually customize that cost so that you're maybe getting it for a certain region of Texas, or if you operate nationwide, you can see it for a nationwide average. And then on top of that, you can see which of your vehicles are idling the most. We know that that's a very significant area of potential cost savings for a lot of our fleets when they can just cut down on overall idle time so that their drivers are maybe spending less time in the vehicle and being more efficient at job sites, or just being more efficient with those company resources. And then related to that is also going to be vehicle maintenance. For anyone who has really even just gotten a flat tire, we know how painful being down a vehicle, whether it's your personal one or one of the company vehicles, can be. So we're seeing a lot of our customers shift over to utilizing this maintenance section of the dashboard as well, to ensure that not only are they aware of what's going on within their fleet, down to the specific P codes if they are being shown, so that they know what's happening and they can take action immediately if necessary. But they're also using this to start tracking the work that's been done through the logging feature, or any work that is scheduled or upcoming, to ensure that they're staying on top of things like tire rotations, oil changes. And in that way, they're making sure that they don't have a vehicle go down unexpectedly, or if they do, that those cases are minimized. Because at the end of the day, especially during these kind of tough times, they need to make sure that their drivers are able to get from point A to point B reliably and efficiently. So let's say you're a mechanic at Hardees or one of those customers. You can always come in here and see from the dashboard what vehicles are seeing which faults. But frankly, you're not going to be staring at a computer screen 24/7. So you probably want to know, when that occurs so that you can actually deal with it, and otherwise you have other projects that you're working on. So in those cases, we actually have real-time alerting, which I got to just by clicking this bell down here. So Hardees uses quite a few of our sensors. So because of that, they have quite a few alerts, but this is going to be limited by which sensors a person has deployed within their fleet. If we're talking to a food and distribution company like Hardees, they're going to have temperature sensors, but you wouldn't see those if you don't have those. So if I'm a Hardees mechanic, I'm going to want to set up alerts for things like fault codes so I can see them immediately, and if it's something urgent, I can actually go in, and immediately take that vehicle off the road or schedule something for the next time it's going to be in the shop to make sure it's dealt with in a proper manner. But maybe I'm the safety director or just the fleet manager, and I want to know what's going on with my drivers to ensure that not only do I know the second and any sort of incident happens, but I start to get alerts even when something isn't major, but maybe needs some sort of corrective action either now or in the next few days to ensure that we head off any sort of bad behavior before it occurs. For that, we've got things like our speed alerts. We also have harsh event alerts. So for speed alerts, you can actually go in, and fleet managers have a lot of customization that they can do here so that they're not wasting their time with things like false positives. In K through 12, we often see folks saying, I want to know if any of my buses are going over 50 or 55 miles per hour. Whereas in commercial or private fleets, we often see it being more dictated by things like the speed limit. And they say, I want to know if my driver goes at least 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. And maybe you don't care as the safety manager if they're doing that to pass some slower moving cars on the highway. But if they're doing it for more than, let's say, a minute or two, that's when you want to get a notification. Again, to kind of cut down on some of the noise here and ensure that you're spending your time as effectively as possible on the events that actually matter and on the drivers that actually need some sort of corrective action instead of the ones that are doing things mostly okay. And from there, you can set up contacts either from email, text, or both to make sure that you get those notifications in your preferred way. And so speaking of safety, we do know that this is a big area of focus for a lot of fleets. Insurance costs are rising pretty much everywhere at this point, unfortunately. So anything that, frankly, as a company we can do to help our customers and prospects lower those insurance costs, we try to make sure that we can help with. I've gone to our safety inbox here, which is almost like your email inbox for any sort of harsh events that may occur. You can see here, not only do you get to see the date and time that any sort of event occurred, you can see the vehicle it was with. If the driver is logged in via the driver app, you can actually see who that driver was. And actually with our AI-enabled dash cameras, you can actually train the dash cameras to see who the driver was, recognize them, and tag them for the individual trips that they're taking, as well as for these safety incidents that occur while they're driving. And then you actually have the events categorized by things like harsh braking, if the driver was distracted, which is detected by the dash cameras, as well as if anyone from the team is already dealing with that incident or has reviewed it already. And for privacy reasons, I can't just click into any video, but we do have some that Hardees has allowed us to share. So just to give you a sense of what the dash camera and safety platform looks like when there is an event, this is what you would see. Depending on which cameras you have, you could either see just the road-facing view, or you could also see what's going on in the cab. And that's where you would get the insights of if the driver was distracted, using his mobile phone. And you can actually even go in and add things like mobile usage. I believe there were concerns that this driver wasn't wearing his seatbelt as well, and you could add that as well, so that on a macro scale, you can see what's going on within your fleet and what kind of trends you're running into across all of your drivers. And if I were to go into this video, not only can I see what happens during the incident, but I can actually go in and see certain things like what speed they were going at each point in the video, when they actually engaged the brake pedal. For certain vehicles, we can actually pull if they had cruise control enabled as well. So with all of this, you're able to get a really granular view of what occurs within each incident to make sure that you're not going and trying to investigate things that, frankly, you should just have access to in the first place. And I apologize for my home internet. There we go. You can see here, because the driver was distracted and looking at his phone, he missed a sign that actually said that there was construction ahead. And because of that, he actually had to, I think, drop by about 20 miles per hour pretty suddenly so that he could safely get over and move into the right section of the road. Now, I know we've covered a lot of different areas of the dashboard. I believe we're running up on time, so there's just one more section that I did want to show you all, and that's related to what we're hearing a lot kind of before March of this year and even more so now going into the next few months, which is, you know, getting back to work, which I know is a big focus for our partners at DataVox, and how to most effectively do that, knowing that there's probably still going to be things like social distancing measures. People are going to be potentially working from home more often. So how can we take some of these processes that are maybe less advanced, and how can we centralize them either with a given technology or move away from, you know, having physical copies of documents and, you know, going fully digital. One of the things that we've introduced through our free driver app is the documents feature. So for Hardees specifically, they actually use this for a couple different things. I know they have been using it, I think in the past for fuel receipts, and then they've actually been using it as well. Actually, let me go into here. I was looking at a period in time when Hardees didn't have the documents feature turned on. So they've been using it for things like fuel receipts, but one of the complaints that they were often receiving was around the deliveries of the produce that they would give to the different restaurants and grocery stores that they worked with. Their driver would drop off a delivery, and then they would get a complaint later that day or the next day saying either it was left very messily or it was missing items. In some cases, it was left outside. And there was no real way for Hardees to go back and dig through this kind of he said, she said argument. So they wasted a lot of time, you know, dealing with that or dealing with, you know, maybe some paper slips that drivers were getting and some that weren't. So with the documents feature, Hardees was able to actually go in and create a custom document for their drivers to fill out so that they would actually take photos of the produce delivery, where they left it, and what it looked like to ensure that it met their standards and their customer standards. So that if they ever do get some sort of call saying, you know, hey, this wasn't up to what we had agreed to, they can go back and either say, yes, it was, or no, it wasn't, and then take the necessary action from there. So really just having that visibility, whether it's, you know, proof of delivery photos to actually having a signature, which is possible through, you know, our custom doc creation form, to fuel receipts, to tickets or citations, having all of that in one central space and eliminating the need to consolidate those papers, collect them in person or manually, and just being able to go through and do something as simple as searching through them has saved them a lot of time as well. So again, I think we're running up on time, but I know we have saved some time for questions. So I want to thank everyone for their time. I want to thank our partners at DataVox for giving us this opportunity. And if there are any questions or more interest in looking at Samsara later on, I would ask you please go to your DataVox rep and they will put you in touch with us. But with that, I think I'll hand it back to Jessica and Margaret.
Hey, this is Mike. This was a fantastic demo of the solution, and we do have a couple questions. As far as the technology that is deployed within the fleet, what makes up that? What are the components? I know there's a camera, dashboard camera. What else? You mentioned some sensors. Tell us maybe have a picture of what that looks like.
That's a fantastic question, and let me share my screen in just one second. I'll actually show you a few of the different ones. And I won't go too deep into each of these. I'll note that all of these, as well as their product specs, are kind of available on our website. I'll show you where you can find that. But I'll give you kind of a sneak peek at what those are and what they look like. So at a high level, we're actually kind of categorized into 4 different types of products. We've got IoT gateways. We've got our cameras, we've got our environmental monitors, and our sensors. So the IoT gateways they're more like the brains of the Samsara dashboard in that they're what allow everything else to connect back to the dashboard The vehicle gateway allows for the dash cameras and those sensors and environmental monitors to actually transmit all of that data back. So there's no, because it basically takes care of that, there's no need for like a separate data license or anything like that. It's all just combined into the one Samsara VG license. And then the asset gateways are what track our either powered or unpowered assets, and then are able to also transmit that sensor data or environmental monitor data back to the dashboard. We've got our cameras, and all of these devices are pretty small, by the way. VG is about the size of a deck of cards, so is AG45. This is probably the 2 or 3 of those deck of cards stacked on top of each other. Cameras can fit in the palm of your hand, and we've got both a road-facing only as well as a dual-facing version, depending on what is needed for each. We've got the environmental monitors, either for ambient temperature or for folks who are transporting liquids. We have one that has a probe as well, so you can actually stick it into a test liquid, depending on what sort of compliance you need to prove. And then we have different sensors and accessories like door monitors, so you can see if and when trailers were opened or closed. If you have a lot of trailers in a yard, you can actually see with the cargo monitor how full they are versus not. We have ID card readers, which we're seeing a lot in K through 12 and passenger transit, as well as panic buttons. Maybe you want your driver to be able to immediately press a button and say, hey, an incident just occurred. And not only will it capture video as a harsh event, but it'll immediately send up an alert on the dashboard saying something just occurred with this driver, and it'll draw your attention to it. And then for folks who are maybe driving into or out of, we often see military bases or ports, we have camera covers that are a fairly obnoxious neon color, but we need to have that so that it can be very visible that we are covering up that camera for those privacy reasons.
You did have a sensor that was described as a panic button.
Yes.
And you mentioned integrations. Do you integrate to any of the security platforms? Or has that been discussed, whether it's like a Genetec, Linnell? I don't know if, I'm sure that with the API integrations, you can do that, but I guess the panic button is pushed, it goes to your software directly and the administrator of that and those stakeholders that are tagged to that device, right?
Yes.
Okay. I guess another question, you know, you serve a lot of vertical markets, you have a lot of customers. Is there a sweet spot of fleet vehicle and the amount that they may have, whether it's 2 vehicles or 200 vehicles? Samsara works best in X environment?
I wish I had a better answer for you, but not really. It's because we have all of these different features, it really depends on, quite frankly, how in-depth someone wants to go with the platform. But we're able to meet this really broad group of needs, as you could kind of see with the different verticals and logos on one of the earlier slides that we serve. You know, I've got, you know, you folks at DataVox who have quite a few vehicles with us. And then I've got a partner who actually came on board in a different part of the country. They only have 2 service vehicles, but they love the experience that they were getting so much from that and everything they were able to manage through that, that they actually wanted to sign up as a resale partner from that. So, you know, it's pretty much all across the board that we see a lot of this strength, whether it's, you know, like I said, K through 12, and it could be a 5-bus fleet who just wants to be able to tell the parent, no, we didn't have a breadcrumb trail. We know for a fact we got to the bus stop at 7:40 a.m. and you guys weren't there. And by the way, here's the camera footage of that bus stop being empty, you know, to a 500 vehicle transportation fleet who's crisscrossing the country with trailers. It's all over. So if there's any curiosity on if we can help with, you know, an application that you have, I would encourage you to reach out to, well, you know, this is to the folks online, not you, Mike, but reach out to the folks at DataVox and they can put you in contact with us.
Good feedback. Thanks a lot. I think we did have another question about being potentially tamper resistant. Do you ever find, or do you have an event where a driver is trying to tamper with the technology? Do you have some kind of future-proof or tamper resistant? How does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, and we get that question all the time. So there's a few things that we can do around that, but usually what we see people trying to tamper with are going to be the vehicle gateways or the cameras specifically. So for both of those, we actually have, I think, we did share that real-time alerts section previously. Both of those, we actually have disconnect alerts so that you can get notification immediately if there's any sort of disconnect on either of those. For the vehicle gateways, they normally will plug into the vehicle's diagnostic port, but they actually come with a split cable, so you can actually tuck it up underneath the dash and actually have that other end of the cable sticking out so it looks like it's just a normal vehicle diagnostic port. So it's less easy to detect that there's something there. And for folks who actually even want to be more careful, we do have the ability to hardwire those vehicle gateways in as well. It's just not kind of our recommended route. And then for the cameras, not only do they have that disconnect alert, we are actually working on, with that AI functionality, being able to detect if there's something blocking the camera so that you as a fleet manager can be notified. You know, if we see it all the time, right? A driver puts even just like a Post-it note or, oh, whoops, I put my clipboard over the camera, and so because of that, you guys couldn't see what I was doing in the vehicle. So we've got a couple different things depending on what folks are running into. I will note, I think there was a question of a jammer. Frankly, I've never really run into a jammer impacting our devices or heard of that. But if there are questions around specific things, again, I would encourage you to just reach out and we can definitely look into it with our engineering team.
Thank you so much. I think that may wrap up the questions. Great feedback. Like I said in the intro, we use it. It's a fantastic tool for us. Safety, compliance, very efficient tool, easy to, when we add vehicles, it's easy to, the onboard processing is very easy. The software is very user-friendly. So to your point, if you want another demo, need more information, or need a reference, I mean, we're an example of how this is being used today. So thank you guys for your time. I don't know if you want to close with anything, Alec. If you don't, I was just going to turn this over to Jessica.
No, I would just say, I hope everyone's staying safe. We're looking to getting back out on the roads, as I'm sure you all are as well. So thank you again for your time. Thank you to DataVox. And Jessica, please.
Thanks, Alec.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you all for joining today's webinar. As a reminder, the recording link for today's session will be emailed to all attendees 24 to 48 hours post-event. If you did enjoy today's session and would like to hear more, we do offer new webinars weekly. Please check our DataVox website for more information on upcoming sessions. And as always, we'd love to hear your feedback on all of our events. Once this webinar has ended, you will be redirected to a survey page. If you could please take a moment to complete the survey before closing out your browser, we would greatly appreciate it. That concludes our session for today. Thank you again to Alec and Samsara for a great presentation, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.